Welcome to the Women's Agency Podcast, where together we highlight women in business and their impact in the world. This show is brought to you by the Women's Agency, amplifying women's voices. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Arlia, and you're listening to or watching the Women's Agency Podcast. We are here at the beautiful Serendipity Labs, Atlanta, Cumberland. If you have not visited, do check them out. They're so conveniently located, and they have graciously agreed to let me use their podcast studio. And so we have been having so much fun with guests and great conversations. My guest today is April Williams.
Hi, everybody.
I'm just going to read a little bit about you, and then we'll dive in. You are a native of Southern California.
I am.
Where did you grow up?
Born and raised right outside of San Bernardino.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
I always wonder, why would people leave Southern California?
It's expensive. But honestly, it was college. College took me away.
There you go. And you've been in Atlanta since 2014. You were in higher ed.
Correct.
And were you in higher ed when you moved to Atlanta?
I did. That's what brought me to Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then at some point you switched into real estate. So
Correct.
we're going to get into all of that.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me today. I'm very excited.
I'm so happy to have you. We've had some great conversations. So today I want to really, talk about you, talk about what you do, but also, who you are and how you came to. I always ask people, how did you get here? How did you get at this moment and this time doing what you do? So tell us a little bit more about what you do professionally.
Absolutely. So currently I'm in real estate. So I do both residential and commercial. And it's been quite a journey. I have now somewhat branded myself as a career changer. I was one of those who complained a couple of years ago that nobody ever told me I was allowed to change my careers. I didn't know that was a thing.
You were waiting for the permission.
I was waiting for permission. I was absolutely waiting for permission. I was one of those, you kind of check off the boxes and go to college, go to school, chase a career. And I did not know that we were allowed to change our minds until a few years ago, and being able to kind of take a risk to see what else.
First wisdom of the day, you're allowed to change your mind.
I never knew that. Yeah. And so I never took that class in high school. Nobody's ever given me that permission. But I started off chasing education. Mm-hmm. I loved history. History was my first love. I think I fell in love with it in high school. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed just studying it. I enjoyed learning about our country specifically. And so that actually allowed me to chase after a degree in history, liberal arts, a degree that doesn't really pay too much. And so that's why I studied. I'm a liberal arts girl. And so I chased after history. I got that I went to Hampton University, got my bachelor's there in history, and then knew I wanted to teach. Mm-hmm. And so the goal was to become a history professor. And so I ended up going.
You'd like a great history professor.
I do love teaching. I love reading. Reading is one of my hobbies. And so the goal was to retire as a history professor. But before going into teaching and retiring, I wanted to be in higher ed. And I love the college age. I kind of like college students. I love that experience. College changed my life in so many different ways. I do consider my sisters and I like first generation. And so with my mom, she was an immigrant coming into the country from Trinidad and Tobago. And she kind of told us college was our way out. Mm-hmm. We have to go through these 4 years in order to be somebody, to achieve anything. And because I went to college,
the American
dream. And I had the best 4 years in college. It was so good. I loved what I learned, but it was more so the social aspect of college, the growing up so fast. I was the only one in my family who went away to college while all my sisters stayed in California. And there was something about that college experience that made me want to study higher ed specifically. Mm-hmm. And so right after Hampton, I went to Old Dominion University and got my master's in higher ed with the intention of becoming, hopefully, dean of a college one day. And so that was the career I was chasing for a while.
You were motivated.
I was motivated. I wanted to do something in that space and to really, I feel like college was it's a weird time for young adults. Very, very weird. I think we're expected to make such large decisions without our frontal lobes even being connected. We're young kids and we're
And it's
expected to,
also like a
yeah.
little bubble. You're insulated into this new world. Yeah.
Yeah. We're asked to choose a major and choose a career and make large decisions, and we're still developing. And so I just adored that age and wanted to be an adult for those students one day so that they can have a figure to lean on during those tough experiences. Because outside of even just selecting your career and your major, like the things that you go through in friendships and romance and figuring out who you are and confidence, it's just a lot going on at one time. I tell folks their 20s are the wild, wild west.
They are.
And I think sometimes we need more than just our parents to get through that. I'm a firm believer that we need other adults to lean on, other adults who are not biased and, did not come from the same household as you. And so I truly wanted to be that for other students during that experience. And so I started off my higher career in the admissions and recruitment space. And I spent about 8 years total and then eventually climbed my way to becoming the assistant director for Georgia State University's MBA program. And then I was one of those during the pandemic where the lights just went off hard and fast. And if you ask anybody who's in the educational space, we're all there because of the passion. We're not there for the paychecks. You're not really paid that much. And it was one of those I watched a good portion of the university get furloughed or lose their jobs during the pandemic. And there was just this weird uncertainty. And I was just not enjoying our leadership decenter the students. That started to hurt my feelings personally. And then I was in this bubble of education is full of rainbows and bunnies, and we're all here for the right reasons. And then realizing how corporate it was and it being run like a business kind of just
An institution like Princeton. Yes. Yeah.
didn't know that. It took me a while to realize that. And my focus was always the students. So we have to make sure that they're front and center. And I just watched leadership make decisions that were not in, best interest of the students. And then I also just realized I'm working very hard. I'm very underpaid. And what else can I do with this skill set? Am I allowed to change careers? And it just didn't feel happy anymore. And I was spoiled in a sense that I lived majority of my life, even throughout high school, small jobs, and even in college, where I always enjoyed what I do for work. I've never had a job where I woke up every morning and just hated being in that space. Very lucky. And the second it happened to me, I was distraught. I was like, my nervous system is off. Is this what people feel like when they're in jobs they don't want to be at or they're not happy? And I just knew I had to make a decision, which was scary.
You and I have talked about this before, and what strikes me is just how strong you are as an individual, and I think it's just part of your makeup, but also to point it out to other women that you listen to yourself. You listen to that inner voice that said, I'm not happy. You listen to the dis-ease, the unease of the situation, and we're willing, and giving yourself permission to go, I have to make a change.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a very scary part. And not that scary, it's actually a little lonely. When you've done so much to be in a career, you got in the education, you've gotten the experience, you've built the relationships, you have this pathway that you created, and then to abort the mission, it's a very lonely thought. And it's very, very scary. And I realized, I think one of the most scary thoughts I had was that I had no clue how to make money outside of being hired. And outside of putting a resume together and applying to a job. I had no other skill set. I didn't know how to make money for myself, even if I wanted to.
Yeah, those are two very different things.
Yeah. So trying to figure that out was scary. And I was like, I have very little control. I can either get furloughed or I could lose my job. There was just no certainty. There was no certainty in employment anymore, no certainty in corporate.
Like right now?
Yes. It was just a weird time. And it's a weird time now. I meditated, to be very honest. It was one summer where I just meditated. I was actually working with my financial advisor at the time because I was planning to make my very first home purchase. And so I was saving my money. And I just realized I was unhappy. and I'm not somebody to complain. I'm not a complainer. I might make an observation. I may make one or two complaints, and then I'll be quiet because I'm like, if I'm complaining, it means I have to do something about this situation. And so one weekend, I just meditated, and something told me to go get my real estate license and figure it out from there. And I had a conversation with my financial advisor, and she agreed to help me transition. So instead of me using the money I was going to use to buy my house, we ended up using that money to sustain myself as I was transitioning from one career to the other.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I mean, okay. I just love everything about that. Like you got quiet enough to get direction. You got the direction and you acted on it.
Mm-hmm.
Scary. I mean, it sounds so simple, but that's like half of the work of being human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is being able to listen and act on your own inner guidance.
Mm-hmm. And as my mentor would say, simple but not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Simple but not easy. I knew I had to do something because I felt lonely in those thoughts as it is. And I'm like, well, if I'm the only one living this life, like my life, I have to take charge.
Absolutely.
And so I challenged myself to take charge despite how challenging it was going to feel.
So clearly you're enjoying it now, but I know that was an uncertain time. Did you have doubts like, I don't know if this is the right thing to do?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was very, very scary. I got lucky because my financial advisor, when I told her what I wanted to do, she was like, well, let me introduce you to my realtor. And he, to this day, is my mentor. And so I've always believed in mentorship. I've always tried to be somebody's mentor. I've always had mentees. I just, mentorship is very important to me. And so I tried my best to align myself with the right people while transitioning. I was very impressed by I was doing my research on the Justin Landis Group, which is one of the highest rated teams here in Atlanta as far as real estate. And so I'm like, if I'm going to do it, I have to align myself with the best people. Right. I have to do it right. Mm-hmm. But it was very, very scary. And I remember my mentor at the time said, the first people who will trust you and your new skill sets and your career are going to be your former colleagues because they've seen your work before. They've seen your work ethic. The last people who will purchase real estate from you will probably be your friends and family. But your colleagues have seen you at work and they'll be your first customers. And he was absolutely right.
Wow, that is great advice.
Yeah.
Great advice. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to dive in deeper.
Let's do it.
All right. Be right back. Gather the team at Serendipity Labs Atlanta, Cumberland for a collaborative work experience. Whether you're hosting a training workshop, board meeting, or a lunch and learn, they have the private room that suits all your needs. Discover why they have over 100 5-star reviews and see how Cumberland is the best fit for your business. Call 770-765-0590 today to start planning your next teamwork day. Welcome back, everyone. We're talking to April Williams, the realtor. the Jason Landis Group? Is that
the Justin Landis Group.
Justin Landis Group. Thank you. We were talking about how you got into real estate, kind of this very challenging, pivot out of higher education into real estate. You said it fit your skill sets. Were there any other reasons you went into real estate in particular? Unlimited opportunities. Ooh. With growth in many different areas. First, income, but also flexibility. I don't think I realized how much I really didn't like having a boss until education felt very uncomfortable. And then learned how disciplined I really was as an individual. And so I knew I was self-motivated. And so being able to, one, figure out what my transferable skills were, but also realizing sky's the limit here. There was somewhat of a ceiling in that career field, whether it was I was going to have to relocate to find a different job or I would have to get another degree. My next goal was to pursue my PhD in order to get more money, in order to get a higher position. And I realized if I jumped into real estate, there was no ceiling in my earnings, in my income. And so that was very motivating. And it also gave me the flexibility to create my own schedule. And also now I have, my world just got bigger.
world got bigger, knowledge and business and people. And as much as I'm very introverted, I feel like I've met more people in my 3 years in real estate than I did my entire career in education. So it just feels more abundant in a lot of areas.
Beautiful. I love that. And as you're talking, I'm like, yeah, the real estate requires, because you are so self-employed, it requires a lot of self-discipline.
Absolutely.
As with any entrepreneur journey. But you seem to be so good with people that now that I know you, I'm like, I don't know why you weren't always in real estate, just because you have that natural warmth.
Yeah. I enjoy people. Although I'm very introverted, I truly enjoy getting to know people.
Well, that's something we have in common.
Yeah. I mean, I can get drained, but I love a deep conversation. I love helping people reach their goals. I enjoy effective communication. There was a lot of things I was able to bring out of education into real estate. I'm still able to educate, teaching people how to price their home or their home buying process. There's still a level of education there, and still a level of I get to be proud of other people. That's one of my favorite things. Like, it's always a huge accomplishment when someone closes, and I still get to celebrate. It's like, we may not be at the graduation anymore, but saying, grabbing the keys to your new home is like a mini graduation.
That's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
So you've touched on a lot of the ways you're building community and being able to educate people and building your business on relationships. It sounds like it's become very rewarding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a big world. And what my mentor had always told me, that you would have to be as an entrepreneur, your business is based off relationships. And I do realize, I've noticed that's where a lot of people fail. Their lack of knowing how to build relationships or how to get in relationships with people. And I'm very lucky that skill set has served me well, because it's an element of trust to build your own business, to build your own brand, and for people to want to work with you, but not only to work with you, but also to refer you to other folks in their life. That's a sign that they trust you. And so getting a referral is one of the most meaningful things that you can get from, as an entrepreneur, because it's like, oh, I am building trust out here in the community.
Yeah. You're speaking to all the critical pieces of being your own businesswoman.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how to say this? You've always been self-directed. What advice would you give people about being really in touch with yourself and your own direction, and how to move from that place of, this is who I am, this is what's best for me, here I go?
Yeah. One, I do think it does come with age a bit. Before you become a little self-assured. I think in your 20s, you're a little kind of chaotic and trying to figure out, where does my validation come from? And I think as you get
My adult children are now offended.
I'm going to speak for myself. I'm going to speak for it. Does get better. The self-assurance that comes your way, the true self-confidence, the being able to internally validate yourself. I think one of the privileges of being an introvert is that I do spend a lot of time by myself intentionally. And I think spending time by yourself can be very healing, very, very healing. And I think when you start becoming a little rounded and whole and healed, you start to trust yourself a lot in decision making. I remember that was a pivotal point in my relationship with my mother. I will never forget when we kind of transitioned from being parent, daughter to friends, is when she told me one day, I trust your decision making skills. And that it was a game changer in our relationship. And we just kind of were able to build a different type of relationship from there. And that was just her telling me, I trust what you do with your life. You don't need my permission anymore to do anything. But the confidence of trusting yourself takes a lot of alone time and conversations with yourself, and then falling in love with yourself. Like, I love me a lot. I love me, and I trust me enough to be able to still serve with a purpose, but to also make sure that I'm not giving too much to where I am not taking care of myself. But it took some time to get there. It took some time to get the boundaries in place. It took some time to understand who I am, what it is that I want, without having all of society's input, because society will tell you so many different things about yourself that's not true. Whether it's coming from friends, from family, from just the world itself, and to really sit in solitude at times to determine, what do I desire? Who am I? What do I want? And then having the courage to go after it. It's a game changer. It's a game changer. And so, like, I feel like I want to I love to catch women specifically, because I sometimes can see my friends or family go through, like, oh, they're transitioning, and to realizing they're stripping away the things that society told them to be or to go after. And now they're questioning who they are. And I just like to be that. I want to catch them. Because it's crazy. It's a weird feeling when you realize, wait a second, I don't think I wanted that career. But here I am now 10 years into it. It's an awakening moment for a lot of people. But I love watching women go through that transition of, like, finding themselves, because it feels really good.
Same. Because I went through, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask a direct question. How old are you?
36. I just turned 36 on Saturday.
Well, I was 36 when I went through my big life awakening. And, on this side of it, I feel the same way. Like, if I see a woman in that process, all I want to do is support and encourage and be a cheerleader for her, because you got this. You got this. It just takes some discomfort. It takes some courage to go, oh, this is what I want.
Tap in.
Oh, let's go do that.
Tap in. And then once you do, it's when you open up that door, there's a community there waiting for you. And that's, I think, the biggest surprise. And then it's because when you leave, you're by yourself when you decide to quit your career and go somewhere. You're so lonely. And I decided, I was like, wow, I don't have anyone. I have to create community. But before I do that, who am I?
Before, you and I talked about the loneliness, but it's also punctuated by the people you're leaving behind, who are like, oh, I wish I could do that. Oh, I can't do that. And so you see them, once you break free out of whatever you felt was stifling you, then they're there, and you can see some people who absolutely are meant to be there and love it, but then the other people who have put themselves in the box and see no way out.
It's almost that I haven't read the book yet. I know my little sister has it, but that Let Them Mel.
I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, I haven't read it either. But I think what you just said reminds me of what the concept of that book is, because I lost relationships, transitioning careers. People thought I was crazy, and education's not that bad. And then for me to be courageous enough to say, okay, I'm going to have to leave you here in order to move on, but also make space for new relationships. There's a lonely period in time where there's nobody there.
Yep. I was down to one friend at work and a couple of community friends, and like, okay, that's my kernel. We're going to rebuild. But I was okay with that, because I wanted the people who are more aligned with where I was going.
Same. I remember when I was changing and going through the process of changing careers, everybody had an opinion. Everybody had an opinion what I was doing. Everyone I was taking it all in.
An opinion, maybe more than one.
Yes. And I remember, I will never forget, I was at home and I had this conversation with myself. I said, the only opinions that you're allowed to receive are the ones who are entrepreneurs or those who are risk takers. If you're not a risk taker or an entrepreneur, you are not allowed to weigh in on my decision or my opinion.
That reminds me of the Brene Brown. She talks about
I love
the man in the arena quote from Theodore Roosevelt.
God, I love
it. Is not the critic who counts. It is the one in the arena.
Yes.
Getting dirty.
Yes.
Also.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
That I
quote,
love that.
We have that quote proudly displayed in my living room, because it just is a good reminder, like, it's hard.
It's such a vision,
and sometimes it's very lonely. And pay attention to who you listen to.
Pay attention, because, it can get weird when people start weighing in. You start, wait a second, you would never do this. Like, you're projecting your own fears onto me with your opinion. And here I am taking it in, and now you're disrupting my journey. So I had to be very mindful on whose opinion. Sometimes I let them give their opinions. I just wouldn't listen. Sure. I'm sure it makes you feel better to express that to me.
You may share.
You're doing it for you, not for me, because I know who you are, and I know that you're not somebody you're not in the arena. You're not. So your opinion cannot weigh that heavily on me.
Absolutely. I love that. We're just going to have church.
Yeah.
Self-empowerment church. Any lessons you've learned from being a woman in Real estate?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's made my love for women grow even more.
Really? How so?
The way I get a chance to see women step up in real estate adventures has been so mind blowing for me, especially growing up in a country or a world that kind of diminishes women's leadership or their power to influence. And I love working with everybody in real estate, but women, those are my favorite clients. They come ready. They come very sturdy. They know what they want. And they disrupted all of my beliefs when it comes to women making decisions. And it's just so fun working with them. And if they're not coming to me as a single woman client, I love watching the wives take control because mostly it's the women who are making the final decision in real estate. Like there's been times where I started working with a client. I'm like, please rope your wife in. Rope your wife in. We're not going to get too far because I know she's going to come in and say, oh, this is wrong. And so watching how powerful women are in the decision-making skills in real estate has been so fun to watch. And it's been just so, uh, they're sturdy in the way they make their decisions. It's so funny because they're just not emotional in a good way. Because I think we had that stereotype that women are very emotional leaders or emotional decision makers. And I find it to be the opposite in real estate.
Love that.
I find the men tend to be more emotional in decision making. Usually, when I'm working with men, I do have to step in more in a capacity to hold their emotions. So
That's also interesting.
it is. I'm their mother. I'm their wife. I'm calming them down. They sometimes have little tantrums. Women, no, from start to finish, they're more collaborative. They're more communicative. They're more like I need A, B, C, and D, and just more focused. And I'm just like, wow, it is very cool to watch them maneuver in that space, and it's blown my mind. Yes.
In your relationship with the women you work with and your clients, you've told me it helps your business grow. How so?
The first year of real estate, I did a lot of networking, and I was networking all across the board, different networking groups, different ages, male and female. And then when I started like taking my ROI towards the end of the year and realized who was referring business or who was more tapped into the growth of my business, it ended up being women. Women tend to be the most supportive. They tend to send me more referrals than men do. They are very sturdy in their follow-up. And I've had great referrals from men, but I've realized women have been more intentional with wanting to stay connected and watch me grow. And so I've been very, very thankful in that arena. And because of that, I do a lot of networking with women in their group because I too want to help their business grow. And I realize I do so much networking, and not everybody I come to contact with needs real estate. That'd be foolish of me to think that. And so I'm always trying to figure out what value can I bring to their life outside of real estate. And it's how can I help your business grow? What are your business needs? I'll go through my database. Who do you need to be connected with? And so I do realize gender-wise that women tend to be the great connectors. And they help my business grow.
We are. And I mean, that's really the whole reason behind the Women's Agency and its podcast is the magic of women being connected to each other and supporting each other and having that intentionality and the that striking that balance between doing what's best for you and but always keeping the other person or the community in mind.
Absolutely.
And understanding that they're not mutually exclusive.
Absolutely. And because of it, I've created so many great friendships. So the friendships I talked about that I had to get rid of transitioning careers, like my life has grown with stronger friends. And it's been so good. And I tell folks all the time, like I sometimes run into like a mentee saying it's so hard to make friends as an adult and I don't know how to make friends. I was like, you'd be surprised on the women that are out there. Just go out there and open up your mouth. Be curious about other people. I find it as an introvert, I do find it pretty easy to make new friends as I'm going along in my career and networking and just staying connected. My favorite thing is to get invited over to a client's house after we close for dinner, and then we start a friendship. And, you can't get rid of me after I'm your realtor. We are locked in for life. And so I do want to be at the housewarming. I do want to be there for dinners. I do want to see how your family is growing, how we can stay connected, because it's all about relationships to me.
It is. And because we're talking about women and relationships and support, a shout out to ProWin Atlanta,
Yes,
our
yes,
networking group where we
yes.
met, which does a phenomenal job of that. If you're in the Atlanta area and are interested in networking, check out prowin.com.
Yes, great group of women.
Absolutely. April, thank you so much for being here. I want to close with this. So if you're if you run across a woman, let's say in the grocery store, and you start chatting, and she is also in her late 30s and is in that tumultuous transition phase, what advice would you give her?
Well, internally, I'm screaming, can we be friends? Can we be friends? We're going to be friends. She doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to approach with, calmness. And honestly, keep it together. But those are my favorite type of women who are in the middle of going to that transition. But I would tell them to tap in and that you already know the answer. You already know the answer. I had a really great friend of mine, Valentina, who said that to me one time, and I was going through a crisis, and the way that she showed up for me that day, she just told me, April, like, I have no advice for you. You already know. You already know the answers. Just get quiet. You know. I will tell that woman she knows. Listen to yourself. Absolutely. I completely agree. Thank you so much for joining us. I love your spirit and your enthusiasm and all the wisdom and education you have to share, and how you translate everything you do into relationships. And that's what makes life so rich. I feel the same about you. You're very powerful. So thank you so much. All right. Well, from two powerful women, thank you for joining us today. April, how can people get a hold of you and find out more about you? Absolutely. So I'm pretty active on social media, specifically LinkedIn and Instagram. My Instagram is Renee, spelled AYE _RENAE. You can also find me on the Justin Landis Group website. My email address is aprilwilliams@justinlandisgroup.com, and you can just find me on LinkedIn by looking up my name. Beautiful. All right. Well, you heard it. That's how you find her. Do check her out. Check out all our episodes with powerful women. Thanks so much again to Serendipity Labs for hosting us, and we'll see you here again next time on the Women's Agency. Thanks for joining us. This program is brought to you by the Women's Agency, a full-service podcast production and coaching firm in Atlanta, Georgia. Visit thewomενsagency.com for more.